Hey, Chriselle. Are so, like, how you fierce. And
You give it right back to them. Yeah.
so what kind of couple? We said it to, I texted it to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, seriously. Okay.
So he wants to speak at visitor record.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I call this Fluff.
Howdy, guys.
Hello.
How's it going?
Well, good.
Yeah, we encourage you to wait. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
How you doing?
I like yours.
But yours is more comfortable.
Hey, Chase! What's up, buddy? Yes. No, just send him information. So I will do so.
Okay. Hello. Hello there. We are again. Here again. How are you doing?
Good. It's summer. I'm always good. Winter, I'm always bad.
Yeah, I guess there will be a difference. Hey, Susan. How are you? Oh, I can imagine. I keep saying we don't need to do that, but that's my opinion. I'm not going to voice it. I agree. I mean, I brought it up before. I think it's ridiculous to do that. I know, and what I keep saying, is we're penalizing kids for parents' inability to pay. I mean, that's not the kids' fault. They can't help their parents, of course. And then we're holding them up, their life. I just think it's bad. You said what?
I said, sorry, my shoes are so loud.
Oh, no, you're fine. That's what's missing.
You're
Normally I have
changing
two chairs.
chairs?
No.
I always have a
I do the same
second.
thing.
I bring everything.
Well, I always like to not have to put myself on the floor for that.
Yeah, yeah. I just bring so much stuff. That huge stack. Oh, okay. I got it against the wall there. Yeah. Oh, we got a purse. We got. Wait.
I just hate having to bend over trying to find it in the dark.
Yeah.
Oops. That wasn't smart.
Chris, I brought my computer.
Okay.
Whenever you have time.
It's actually broken.
I don't know if I need to, like when you set it up so when it would start, it opened all my Express pages that I needed.
Okay.
And one of them is the, okay. Oh gosh. Okay. So maybe I close it and reopen it. Okay, so it goes to this page that's not found.
Okay. So we're gonna go here into our settings.
Okay. Okay.
So we're going to edit this right here because our domain did change. So what pages did you have kind of at the top?
It was my email, the website, Board Docs.
Okay.
I think those two.
So we can close that one. Let's edit this one.
Okay.
We just want to come to
Okay. You have no idea. This is like everything to me.
Get in.
Same problem with whatever Jolie's having. I think I'm having it too. Nothing. Oh, good. You saw the look on my face, like.
I know. Yeah, she's nice.
Okay. That's a good thing.
Page.
And I saw your
Okay.
buddy, Ironetta, today. She told me to tell you hi.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you.
She's
Oh
good.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
She said, nothing. They wanted me to come down and talk about Great Oaks. I can't get in either. And she just dropped in. There was a board meeting. But she came by just to let me see all of it.
She knows our relationship.
Yeah. And she said, you got a new secret. And they were all confused. They were like, Terry's leaving? No, Terry's leaving.
Yeah.
She's talking about the guy.
Yeah.
And so I asked her if she had a chance to meet yet. She said no. I said, okay, we'll make sure.
Oh my gosh. I've never seen it.
I know.
All right, you're all set.
Well, now my battery died, so so now it's over there. So that's just how it's going. You've said that before, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm like, okay, it's meant to be. Yep, that's right. Yep. upside down. Push your button. Push the button. There you go.
Let's check with Christine. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
They're ready.
Okay, good evening. We will now call the Monday, June 12th, 2023 Princeton Board of Education regular meeting to order. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the regular meeting. Mrs. Petter, roll call.
Mrs. Weider?
Here.
Mr. Simons? Present. Mrs. Cleveland? Here. Mrs. Moore?
Here.
Mrs. Kessler?
Here.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We need either approval or revision of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Mrs. Moore has moved, and Mr. Simons has seconded. Mrs. Petter?
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland? Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes, thank you. Now it is time for the recognition of visitors. Our first visitor is Marquise Elliott, or Bob.
Good evening.
My name is Bob May, and I'm here to parse out some equities and current practices at Princeton regarding pay-to-play activities and the withholding of diplomas. My friend over here, Marquise Elliott. Marquise and two brothers are being raised by their great-grandmother. Yes, I did say great. Marquise's grandmother is on welfare, so there's not much money floating around.
Thank you for coming. Next is Tara Thielmeyer.
Oh, my keys.
I just have them in the order the papers were given to me.
My name is Marquise Elliott.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I've been playing sports for Princeton ever since I was in 7th grade, and I never thought that after I graduated that I had to pay $600 for playing sports, and I'll say dumb in my opinion that I had to pay $600 for playing sports all 4 years throughout high school, and I don't really got that much money. I left my great grandma, make it hard trying to get money, and all my life I thought that playing sports for Princeton would be for free. But then now I'm noticing that I can't get my diploma because I have to pay $600 just so I can get my diploma. I kind of very silly and kind of odd in my opinion. So with that being said, just to pick up what Bob was saying, I would like for y'all to adjust that and to think it over. And not only am I the only one, but I got 2 younger brothers that's coming up that's doing the same thing and have to pay the same amount of money that I do. So not only that, we got other kids that's going to school that have to do the same thing. And I know it's hard for families to really pay it off, or for families to really try to pitch in to get things, because we all got businesses and stuff that we need to do. So I was asking if y'all would look it over. That's basically it.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. And next is Tara Thielmeyer.
Okay, I don't know if you have forced to death because everybody else just said everything, but Princeton has a lot of funding in different areas, and the Education Foundation and all these other things that help people with fees and everything along the line. And then they're told they can't go towards athletic fees, only educational fees. And if that's the case, then athletics and your diploma should not be connected. They should be 2 separate. If your diploma is connected to the athletic, the educational part, then the athletic part should not come into play to get your diploma. And the only, when we're talking to people and everybody, they're like, well, let's start a GoFundMe account. We'll find out what the kids that need money. And I said, how terrible would that be? If Princeton community put a GoFundMe account for the kids to get their diplomas. And we should be able to figure some of that out for these kids. And I think a lot of kids believe that if you're on free and reduced lunch, they actually don't have to pay the fees. I just believe that as a belief throughout the communities, that the kids on free and reduced lunch get help with their fees. And so maybe if things are just clarified for the future, so these kind of things don't happen anymore. That's all I got to say.
Thank you for speaking. Next is Bob Main. Okay. So did I get everybody? Okay. Thank you all for coming.
Madam President, I would like to make a motion that we take it under advisement or get some reaction, whatever course of action superintendent recommends. I don't know.
Yeah, during public opinion, we can't, as a board, react or respond at all. So we will have to bring this up at a later point with an appropriate agenda item.
Yeah, that's what I was
But it's a
recommending.
point well made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the recognition of Princeton High School boys and girls state track and field qualifiers.
Thank you, Mrs. Wider. This has certainly become a wonderful tradition. I'm going to call up Coaches Braddix and Smith up to the stage, please. And I distinctly remember last year, coaches, you'll remember this, but especially Coach Braddix, who had his kids who qualified that came up on the stage, and they were in between workouts after school preparing for nationals. So coaches, just want to give you just a minute or two just to kind of reflect and talk a little bit about the kids, and then I'll read all the names and what they qualified for. Coach Braddock, you want to start us off?
Sure. Thanks for having us. I'm Coach Braddock. For those who don't know me, I'm the head girls track coach heading into year 6. And we just concluded another fantastic year, which finished with the state championship. So that's always our goal. And we had some fantastic results. We had a relay, our 4x200 meter relay broke the school record. That was Jada Irwin, Amira Dixon, Khalees Rab, and Bella Williams. So that was one of the highlights of the state championship. And the other highlight was Jada Irwin. She broke a, what was that, 10-year record? She broke a 10-year 400-meter record, which they know that the 400 and 4x4 are my favorite races. So to see her come out here and break that 400 record was everything for me. So she lowered that, and we're excited about the direction that they're going in as well. So great year so far.
Yeah, great.
Hey, Coach. Coach Smith.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Curtis Smith, head boys track coach. We had Trayvon Williams, Jared Farley, Jackson Woodall, and Dorian Williams qualified for the state championship. Dorian in the 200 and 4x4, and the rest of the guys, they qualified in the 4x4. We didn't quite make it to the finals. We had some things going on where we're dealing with some injuries and things like that, but the guys showed a lot of fortitude, a lot of effort just to get up there. It's a very challenging task to get there. So I'm proud of their efforts. We do have Jared Farley. He's continuing his training, and he's going to be running in the Adidas Nationals this weekend, as well as Jackson. He's running track this summer as well. So we got guys still continuing on to press forward to be the best that they can be, because they're, some of our guys are going to run in college next year. So, but I appreciate all the guys' efforts, and thank everybody, the athletic administration, Coach Braddock for his assistance, and just all the support that we get from the school. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach. We're gonna recognize the students now, and then the Board of Education will take a picture with Chris Petter, our treasurer, and the coaches. So we're gonna call these kids up. But, I'm not sure if all the kids are here, but I'm gonna recognize each and every one. Leah Bates, 10th grade discus. Myra Dixon, 12th grade, 4x1, 4x2, 4x4. You guys can come on up. Jay Dugan, 12th grade, 4x4. Jared Farley, come on up here, 4x4. The boy, 4x4 relay, who also told me, Coach Smith earlier, he was going to run a 47 for sure next year, 47 flat. Jada Irwin, 12th grader, 400 meter. Again, you heard the record setter, 4x2, 4x4. Olivia Kinney, 9th grade, 4x200 alternate. Khalees Rabe, 10th grade, 4x1 and 4x2. Kendall Thomas, 10th grade, 4x4. Zaya Walton, 10th grade, 4x1. Dorian Williams, 11th grade, 200, also the 4x4. Isabella Williams, 11th grade, 4x1, 4x2. Trayvon Williams, 12th grade, 4x4. Leah Winfield, 11th grade, 4x100 alternate. And Jackson Woodall, 12th grade, 4x400. UC track is alive and well at Princeton. Let's give them a big round of applause. Mr. Lockhart, hardest job ever trying to get this big group in one picture. Board of Education, if you could fall in behind them.
On the count of 3, 1,
Boys and girls state qualifiers. Woo! You know, one of the things about the boys and the girls, I was just mentioning something as the teams were leaving the stage. They're not satisfied and they're not happy. And you have a lot of times when people qualify for states, they get there and they're like, we made it. And that's good enough. I think that's what separates our student athletes, is that they're always trying to get better. And as I've said this a bunch of times, you don't have to be sick to get better. Our track team is not sick, but they're getting better each and every day. Let's give them one more round of applause. So in my time here, that's okay, Susan. In my time here, oh, go ahead, Susan.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So in my time here, it has been a pleasure to recognize so many student athletes, so many coaches. And I will tell you, we've not had a baseball coach get Greater Miami Coach of the Year. And I would love to talk in front of Coach DePiel, but unfortunately he can't be here tonight because he's coaching an all-star game because he was Coach of the Year. But I think it's appropriate that we definitely give him a big round of applause. Greater Miami Conference Coach of the Year, Andy DePiel. We do, however, have some baseball players here today. And so we're going to call them up. All the baseball players could not be here today because, well, I know Carson McDaniel cannot be here, and I'm not sure if there's anybody else that couldn't be here because Carson, we know, is playing in that same all-star game. But Josh Davis, if you can come on up, if you're here, there's Josh. Josh's first team, all GMC. Andrew Etherington could not be here tonight. Henry Haig, 12th grade, second team. Liam Morgan-Roth, Liam Morgan-Roth, 12th grade. Thank you, Liam, sorry. And Wyatt Shaw, 10th grade. Let's give them a big round of applause. Board of Education, step night, let's go on. All right, give them a big round of applause. As the gentlemen leave the stage, I wanted to say this, that many of you know that my son played baseball, and I remember being really proud to talk about this historic season that they had. And this team is the first team that you see on this stage right now that was over 500 in a long time at Princeton. They've worked very, very hard, and the future is exceptionally bright. And I honestly did not think I would talk about another baseball team that was better than my son's. But they certainly were, and they could beat them. And my son may be watching tonight, but Bryce, this team is better. Congratulations, gentlemen. You know, we are so very fortunate to be in a district where diversity and equity is so valued and appreciated. We know that helps make us strong, but it's not just saying that we have a diverse population. That's not really what it is. You have to start with a diverse population if you want to value diversity with the diversity you have in a district. But we have beautiful diversity here, and we're so very proud to create equitable opportunities for not only our students, but also our parents to learn and grow and get better. So today I'd like to call up Kelly Perrin and Anna Martinez. Kelly Perrin is the director of our English Learner Program, And then Martinez is our bilingual liaison, community liaison, and they both do an amazing job. Kelly.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. We held our first ever Princeton Parent Academy, and the Academy is created to create opportunities for parents to explore topics around U.S. schools, build capacity and leadership skills, and choose leadership opportunities in their child's school and within the Princeton community. Again, like I said, our first academy was held at Stewart Elementary. Those parents from Stewart Elementary were able to ask questions so they could best support their students at home and at school, provide feedback to the Princeton teachers and administrators regarding their child's school experience, understand how to become parent leaders within the school and community as well, and learn about their rights as parents to best support their children. With the success of this academy, we plan to continue with another cycle this coming fall. We want to sincerely thank the parents from Stewart Elementary that participated in 6 weeks of this academy. These parents have become community members or leaders through this process and are able to help other parents in reaching their children's goals while exemplifying the Princeton spirit.
And before, Anna, before you call the names, I just wanted to add very quickly that, so the Board of Education would like to take a picture to everybody. Look, parenting is hard. It is not easy in general. We are under almost this big attack when it comes to social media and distraction of students and our own children. And so when you look across the board, stuff like this needs to happen for each and every person. This helps us grow and helps us get better and stronger. And we're so very appreciative that this was created. And I know that it was a long process to do so. But this needs to be emulated across the board for all parents. We have to understand that as parents, you guys didn't take a class before you became parents, probably. We certainly didn't. We may have read a lot of books, but the reality is our kids are all individually different. And being a parent is not easy. And so we need help, we need support, and it's okay. And so programs such as this and maybe opening up across the district for other parents to participate and learn and grow and get better and stronger is probably what we should be doing. Not only this year, but each and every year. Anna?
So I will be calling the names of the participants. As I call your name, you will come up here and receive your certificate and stand and wait for a picture. Cuando llame su nombre, usted va a venir, va a recibir su certificado, se va a parar y va a esperar para la foto. Primeramente voy a llamar a Ivoneiva Barcelos. Zoila López. Claribel Pérez. Bertilia Pérez. Sonia Morales. Elvira Lucas. Isabel Cano. Tania González. Amy López. Arely Roblero. Seferina Pérez. Herminda Hernández. Rosidalia Bartolón. Congratulations. Felicidades.
And as all the participants from our very first Parent Academy leave the stage, we certainly appreciate their attendance, their help, their support, getting stronger and better each and every day. Let's give them one more round of applause. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Anna.
Is your mic? Mike.
Okay, sorry about that. I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention that I had the opportunity to go over to Stewart and participate in one of the sessions and had a chance to meet a lot of our participants. The questions they asked were amazing. And so I have to give it to our two leaders here for bringing this forward. I am so appreciative to both of you for what you're doing. Please continue, as I said that night and continue to say to you each time I see you, please figure out a way to make this something broader, as Mr. Burton said. You know, again, a great job. I couldn't be more proud of what you put together and how proud I am of our parents and their interest in what's going on with our schools. So thank you.
Yes, you could stay if you like for 2 hours, or you can go. Good night. Hasta luego.
Thank you, congratulations.
Next is the consent agenda.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as listed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Mrs. Weider, do you mind if I say something? Because there are a couple items in the consent agenda, or at least one that I would like to talk to. When I first came here 8 years ago, one of the very first people I met was Tanya West Wright. And at that point, she was director of elementary education, and she was a direct report to me, but she was more than that. She was such an amazing colleague who helped me learn and grow, but also specifically helped the district significantly. And it was bigger than just elementary school. Then when I became superintendent, we talked a lot about Dr. Mary Phillips before, but then Tanya West Wright became assistant superintendent. And in the consent agenda, we're very proud of the work that Tanya West Wright has done, and she was just approved as associate superintendent. I think that helps the district get stronger and better. We talked about that earlier, and I would just like to tell Tanya, I know that things are going to continue to get stronger and better under your leadership, and you're going to help Mr. Carter with his transition, but more importantly, you're going to help each and every student in this entire district. So Tanya, thanks for being willing to step up and take on that role.
Anything else, Mr. Burton?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Next is district business. Approval of the May 2023 financial report. Do you have anything to say about that?
I move that we accept the May 2023 financial report.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Mrs. Petter?
On your monthly financial report, it's really, really very, very almost exactly matching the May forecast that you just approved in May. So, again, 2 weeks since we approved, everything's right on target as we discussed in the forecast. One more lonely month to go, and then we put fiscal year 23 in the books. We also have attached for you your ESSER fund report, and again, talk about things that are almost done and in the books. At the end of May, we only had $48,000 unencumbered at that point. I have approved many purchase orders in these first 2 weeks of May. Friday was the deadline to turn in grant purchase orders. I am very confident that we got that 48 handled too. Now we just have to wait until those bills come in. Those have to be in and paid before the end of September, and then this ESSER 2 grant is closed out. And we have just the final grant, ESSER 3, remaining, and we are doing very well on that, 70% spent and or encumbered. So we're doing well. One more year on that grant. It has to be encumbered by June 24 and spent out by September 24. So we're doing very well on spending those grant funds. You have your reconciliation, your credit card report attached in there, nothing that sticks out on those to report. You have them for your review. The 018 fund, updated for expenses in May, just a little bit of revenue in May, but the expenses are mostly year-end activities that this fund pays for. And that is your May financial report.
Any questions? Do we need to vote on that, Mrs. Pettit? Then
Yes.
will you call the roll?
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is approval of service agreement with Hamilton County ESC for Hillcrest Training School.
I move to approve the service agreement with Hamilton County ESC for Hillcrest Training School as presented.
Second. Any
This-
discussion?
Just that this training is paid out of our title money and not out of general fund, and this is very critical for us. Thank you.
Title 1D, we are just the fiscal agents for this.
Okay. Anything else? And Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
I abstain.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next is approval of overnight out-of-state field trips.
I move to approve the overnight out-of-state field trips as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Then Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is approval of agreement to participate with Mount St. Joseph University for educator recruitment.
I move that we accept the agreement with Mount St. Joseph for educator recruitment.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just very quickly, this is yet another example of the work that's been done by Dr. Jameson and his office, as well as Tanya Westwright and many other people, to ensure that we get the best teaching candidates possible. And we know that if you look historically in the last 3 years, that enrollment into teacher education programs has significantly declined. And in fact, not only over the last 3 years, but over the last 10. And so when you look at that, if you're just going to hope to get great teaching candidates, you could do that all you want, but it's not going to work. We continue to battle against other districts, and other districts battle against us to get the best teachers possible. This allows us to take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and really allow us to create opportunities for our own staff as well as others to be able to go into the teaching field. And Dr. Jameson and I talk about this all the time. This is bigger than Princeton. This is about education in general, but specifically public education. We want to make sure that we get the best possible teaching candidates, and we could help be part of the solution. We could whine all we want, but that's not what we're going to do at Princeton. We're going to, again, try to be on that cutting edge and create programs, and this is one example, yet another example of that. Thank you.
Mrs. Petter?
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes. Motion passes. Next is approval of agreement with NFL Play 60 Fitness Grant Project.
I move to approve the agreement with NFL Play 60 Fitness Grant Project as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Then Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is approval of agreement with Canva.
I move to approve the agreement with Canva as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes. There's no cost to the district for this agreement.
Oh,
Make sure that everyone knows that.
thank you.
Yes, there's no cost. And you know what? That's a good point, Mr. Simons. I appreciate you bringing that up. Because many people out here who are listening know of Canva. And they know that there is, you can go on Canva, and they're like many other online tools. You can get demos for free. You can get maybe certain licenses for free. And so you may ask, why would a district partner with an organization when you could actually get so many things for free? But because of the work of Mr. Lockhart and his great technology department, they know that this is going to help us get better, which is certainly a theme tonight about getting better. Thank you.
Anything else? Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is approval of agreement with Centegix. I hope I said it right.
I move to approve the agreement with Synergix as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, we've talked about this a couple different times during work sessions. We actually had a safety training, albeit brief, it still was very powerful with the Board of Education and conversations. Mr. McDaniel, who's our Director of Safety and Security, did an excellent job with that. But we know that safety and security, when you talk about priorities, there's no greater priority than protect our kids and our staff. There's nothing. And the parents are in there in school. There's nothing more important than that. And so when you specifically look at that aspect, we want to make sure that we provide not only as much training, but some of the resources and tools to protect. We know that we, unfortunately, were part of the swatting epidemic that swept the country. During that time, when we assessed what we needed to do to get better, we looked at a variety of tools to be able to do that. We looked internally what we could have done differently, and we looked externally how could we partner with people. So this organization provides our staff with yet another tool to keep our kids and our staff and any visitor that's in a building safe. And this, again, this is a lanyard that will actually triangulate data. So let's say if somebody was walking down the hallway and tripped and fell or whatever and got hurt and it was really serious and a teacher or staff member saw it, they could push the button 3 times and it would triangulate the data exactly where that person was and send that to our administrators and our safety security staff depending upon what area they're in. And we would be able to immediately go there and help. If there is a safety concern, we could do the same thing. In the highly unlikely, but we have to talk about this, that hopefully, hope to God, never ever happens, but if something more serious were to happen, there would be a code that could be used to send out, which would immediately notify the authorities. So this is going to protect our entire area, our staff, our students, again, any visitors, parents, anybody that's in school in the unlikely event that something were to happen, but we have to protect. And this is one way of doing that. We're able to use ESSER funds, other grant funds. Mr. Sendre has applied for some additional state funding. Right now, a small portion of the overall fee of this, the 5-year agreement, will be taken out of capital funds, general funds. But we're anticipating and certainly more than hopeful that we'll be able to take all grant money out of this. But if we had to pay this out of general fund, it would be well worth it. Thank you.
Just a question. So is this a one-to-one in terms of the apparatus itself?
Yeah, so it's literally like a lanyard. It's on a lanyard,
on
and
a
it's a
lanyard,
card.
okay.
And the card, so there's all kinds of possibilities with this. But the biggest thing is it's almost like an ID card, and it'll hang there. And then all you have to do is, again, there's a button in the middle of it. Press. You know, like Life Alert. You've seen those commercials.
Right.
This is essentially what that is. It's just at a bigger scale.
But this is something that each student would have? Is that what I'm hearing?
Each staff member.
Each staff member.
But it
Okay,
obviously will
that's on
protect our
point. I'm
students
trying
for our
to
staff to,
understand.
yes.
Okay, because we said student earlier. Okay. I just want to make sure I was clear on that.
Sure, good
'Cause I
question.
can see a lot of lost lanyards if it's each student.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
That was a good question. Thank you, Mrs. Cleveland. Okay, Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is approval of agreement with NovaCare Sports Medicine Rehabilitation Services.
I move to approve the agreement with NovaCare Sports Medicine Rehabilitation Services as presented.
Thank you. Mr. Burton, did you have anything to say about this?
Did you make a second, Ms. Swider? I don't know. We just needed a second.
Second.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the only discussion, thank you, Mrs. Wider, is this, there comes a time when working as hard as you can just flat out isn't enough, right? You have to find a way to do something extra. So Mr. Roberts and myself struck out multiple times with a lot of different entities trying to get somebody who would partner with us when it came to sports medicine. So if you remember years and years ago, not even that long ago, maybe 10 years ago, everybody paid for athletic trainers. You had to. And then maybe it's a little bit longer ago than that, but then all of a sudden a lot of hospitals, sports medicine entities would pay for athletic trainers. And that wave is actually coming to an end. You see that a lot out there. So we had a long contract with Mercy Medical. They were supposed to still be providing services through next year. They abided by the contract, which said they had to let us know. It was board-approved contract. They had to let us know 6 months before they intended to leave. So that gave us a 6 month, runway, which seems like a lot of time, but it certainly was not a lot of time. To say that NovaCare stepped up and answered the call and actually are unbelievable partners, we really feel that our kids are going to be better, significantly better off partnering with NovaCare. They're unbelievable providers. They came highly recommended. We had multiple conversations. And this is bigger than Princeton, as we talked about before. This is going to be community. So not only are we going to have this beautiful arrangement where our student athletes will be able to be served 120 hours a week with 3 highly trained trainers, athletic trainers, if you will, but also they're going to be located not too far, right up the street in 25 West Sharon in Glendale. And we're looking forward to this partnership and certainly appreciate them coming here. Part of the contract, you will see is this unbelievable service that we're going to get. And Mr. Roberts and I were driving around the other day at a conference, and Mr. Roberts, you're here right now. I know everybody can't see it, but give a thumbs up if you got a phone call about scholarships. Give a thumbs up if you get a call about scholarships that NovaCare is going to give $10,000 worth of scholarships to our kids for 5 years. That's just amazing. Wow. Partnership, that was not in the contract, ladies and gentlemen. That's partnership. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Burton,
Yes, sir.
when our teams travel and we play, let's say, within the GMC, and the other schools don't have the enlightened superintendency and athletic director that we do. And it's just some guy or gal in the stand that's going to be their trainer. Are we going to allow our trainers to travel?
Well,
Because right now, it's supposed to be the home team handles that.
yeah, the home team does handle that. That is actually by OHSA regulations.
Yes.
But sometimes it's, you know, if you have 4 or 5 events going on,
Yes.
that spreads athletic training
Yes.
group thin.
Yes.
But that is the way it is right now. And remember, we said 120 hours. I think sometimes our athletic trainers work a heck of a lot more than that. So I don't know if they would have the time to do that. But the reality is it is the responsibility of the home team. And like when we have events, we may have 3 here. Others don't necessarily have to have 3. And again, remember what I said, and this is actually a really good question this time. A really good question, Mr. Simons. So because of this, I just said about how the wave is a little bit different now. It is about more and more people that will have to pay for athletic trainers out of general budgets. And because of that, there is going to be more of a strain on certain schools. And I would think that if we have a heads up, if we know that there's going to be an issue with schools, then Mr. Roberts will probably pay for that personally for overtime to have an athletic trainer. Thank you, Mr. Roberts, for agreeing to pay. No, but we would seriously have to look at that. Seriously, we would have to look at that if year over year or event over event we go someplace and that's a problem. But we also have to understand we don't have an agreement there, and when you're providing medical services, we have to be very careful with that as well. So we'd have to look at the legality of that.
Just a suggestion that the GMC come up with some sort of notification or information plan to cover the shortfall at some of our member schools.
Yeah, you know, I know Mr. Roberts is intimately involved with the GMC athletic directors. I know this will be a topic of conversation. It's going to have to be, and I'm not joking around. It's going to have to be, if not now, very, very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is approval of the lease agreement with Princeton Performance Partners.
I move to approve the lease agreement with Princeton Performance Partners as presented.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes. I don't know exactly the date that Dr. Jim Ellis embarked on this journey of buying or starting lens crafters. I don't know, but I know this. He's something special. He created that great company and provided a lot of resources. And in fact, still to this day, we actually get, I think, a top, I don't know if Ms. Wright or somebody knows, I think 100 pair of glasses for our students, any of our students that need help through lens crafters. Dr. Jim Ellis sold that a while ago, but he never stopped learning, never stopped growing. And he partnered with a guy named Dr. Rick Graby, and myself and Joe Roberts had an opportunity to go down and witness something we feel that is so transformational that multiple entities will want to copy what's being done, which is the greatest form of which is definitely something that we want to make sure that that we provide something that people would like to copy. Like we copy from other people when we see great things. So this specifically provides kids an opportunity to understand who they are, why they are, and where they are a little bit better. Providing the ability to understand and grow and do specific therapy to develop different cognitive skills. When we have more and more of our beautiful elderly and people that are going in that are dealing with Alzheimer's, dementia, when we're looking at some of our athletes that are dealing with major issues from concussion, we know that through medical research, it shows that there's things that we could do early on. If a concussion is diagnosed early, there's things that you could do to help develop new neural pathways. and Dr. Jim Ellis or Dr. Rick Graby certainly would be able to be way more eloquent than I am right now, but the reality is this, that we have to do more for our students when it comes to testing and screening. Being able to screen, not just seeing if kids can read okay, but we know that many of our kids, when you look at the different times of the child's life when they do go through vision screening, that you just don't wake up one morning and say all of a sudden you can't read, you can't see. That's not the case. So this program is definitely going to be revolutionary, we feel. It's a wonderful partnership. They have an incredible team. They're going to be located at PAC, which is 3900 Cottingham Drive. You're going to hear more. We're going to start with smaller pilot programs. We're going to be testing athletes this summer. We're going to be rolling it out. It's about a 5-minute assessment, but it's more than just vision screening. This actually will allow us to understand students more and ultimately be able to provide vision therapy, which helps across the board. Lastly, one of the things that really struck me when Mr. Roberts and I were doing all these vision testing was just the acuity, the mental acuity that you have after some of these tests. It's amazing. And so this same technology is going to be available at Princeton, where you're looking at screens and you're literally training your brain and your eyes to follow a certain pattern and pick things out. Immediately after that, you see the results are they're irrefutable. They're unbelievable results, and they have it. It helps students with ADD, with OCD, with ADHD, all across, concussion, getting kids back in service, helping them learn and grow and prevent life-debilitating brain injuries because of the work. I mean, it doesn't prevent the brain injury, but what it does, it allows the neural pathways to go around. And we're going to learn so much more about this in the upcoming months and the years. And I am telling you, I may be very well in the audience and talking so passionately about what they're doing because of the impact that's there. You will see and you will hear great things, and we certainly appreciate the partnership and hopefully the board's support on this.
Mr. Burton,
Yes, sir.
any students being displaced for the room, to make room for this?
No. In fact, there was displacement, Mr. Simons, to be honest. We had some filing cabinets there that had to get displaced that went into another room that had filing cabinets. So no students, no room, whatever. And actually, Mr. Fricke was there. Mrs. Wider actually happened to pop in and see some things too in there. And what's amazing was that we actually were willing to do more to that room. And they're like, this is going to be perfect start. This allows us to do things, anything that we're going to want to change or do, they said they're going to take care of. So it's just absolutely amazing, the partnership. And again, you're going to hear great things. You'll remember this conversation in 5 years.
I believe Johnny Bench was there too. That was pretty swell.
He has a very powerful, dedicated group. Yes, Mr. Johnny Bench is part of that as well, and a 3-star general and some other very high-powered people who believe in this process.
Is that the same Johnny Bench you shared a building with?
Okay.
When Walter and I were first married, we lived in the same apartment building as Johnny Bench. I rode on the elevator a few times with him.
Well, I was just going to say I've had the opportunity to meet the doctor, and actually he allowed me to actually download the thing that he utilizes. And one of the things that you didn't mention is that they use that with pilots. And so they've done some groundbreaking research as it pertains to the visual, again, understanding how the eyes obviously connect with the brain and understanding what happens when there is trauma of any sort. So it's been amazing just to talk to him, see the passion. You know, this is something that I'm really looking forward to. And to your point, I can see this growing across all districts because it's something that's so needed, so.
You know, it probably wasn't too long for maybe all of us up here on stage being all above 40 years old, maybe 50. In some cases, a little bit older. But you do a balance test.
Right.
Right? And some of it's just standing still. Some may be standing on one leg or whatever. So it would be highly unusual for our students, right, when they have a lower center of gravity, to do some type of balance test and ultimately struggle a little bit. Now, a lot of times you would think that that is dealing with just dexterity in general, physical dexterity, not necessarily vision, but actually there's a lot of research showing that is vision. And so really there's some tests that we can do across the board, perhaps in physical education class, maybe during traditional vision screening, to really be able to help kids. How important would this be for parents to know at an early age? It's not just about that their son or daughter can read, right? Or to be able to see, excuse me, that's twice I said that, to be able to see and be able to pass a vision chart, because it could actually, there could be some serious issues. And this is one way of being able to identify that early. And again, this is something that I don't know anybody that's doing this. And sometimes, honestly, sometimes I get really, really excited that we're the first people, the first to do stuff. But we also have to understand that's not always innovation.
Right.
Innovation sometimes is making something better. Right. Again, the theme for tonight. And when you think about something like that, when we went down and we saw everything, and Ms. Cleveland, when you saw and you experienced that, you're probably like, boy, this is great. I wonder if we could do this. I wonder if we could do that. And that's what we're doing right now. And that's what's so exciting, because this program, when it's all said and done, this is, again, it can't stay at PAC.
Right.
It can't.
Right.
We have to do other things differently. And being able to look at this and being able to experience, this could be a regional hub of vision therapy for pre-K-12 students. And it's more than just vision.
It is.
This is actually going to change lives.
Right. It is. It's much more than vision. So kudos. I'm glad we're doing it.
You need a vote?
Anything else? Mrs. Petter?
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Whiter?
A big yes. Thank you. Next is discussion. First, academic update.
Yeah, earlier tonight you saw this wonderful presentation of multiple parents for being in a wonderful program. I'm going to call Kelly Perrin up, and while she's coming up, we're going to pass this out for all the board, but I'd like us not to open this up right away when I pass it to you, because I have something to say before Kelly starts. So as it's being passed out, I will say that when I first came into the district, one of the most exciting pieces of it, again, we talked about the diversity and all that, but we looked at our Hispanic population, is what we called it right then, our English learner population, our Hispanic population, and we looked and we were at, I think, just about 20%. And we've seen that grow, and I think we've gotten better because of it. Again, our parents, our students, each and every one of them, they're valued. We love them. We give them all the experiences that we possibly can. Do you need one more?
No, we have.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And so this is what I like us to think. I'm going to push Kelly, too, on this, which I'm sure you're really excited about right now. So when we talk about, as we go through this presentation, the percentage of our students that are EL, and when you talk about the number of languages that we're talking about, that's not really what it is. When the oldest language in the world is spoken in Princeton, or the dialect, that says something. Kelly?
Thank you. Good evening again. Good evening. So just an overview of the presentation. I'm going to talk about the number of our English learners, our OELPA results, which is the Ohio Assessment, English Proficiency Language Assessment, historical enrollment data, and then our 6 to 12 focus, and a grant we received, and then parent engagement. Thank you. One more slide. So as you can see, we've got the languages listed. We currently these languages right here are 30, we've got 30 languages, but with dialects, we are over 50 languages in the district spoken. We've seen an increase in Ukrainian this year as well due to the current state over there. We also have over 30 nations represented. That includes being represented by every inhabitant. Let me say that again. Every populated continent is represented in Princeton this year. So with this, we are 23% English learners in our district. So it's a huge representation in our district. That puts us at number 1 in the state of Ohio in terms of percentages of EL learners. Sorry. And then we are also number 11 in total enrolled ELs in the state of Ohio. So out of all the districts here in Ohio, we're pretty high up there with our population.
Excuse me, I'm not sure if I heard what you said. We're what among?
We are number 1.
Number 1?
In terms of percentage of ELs. So we sit first. And then we are number 11 in the state of Ohio in terms of total enrolled numbers of ELs.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. Wait for the next slide. Any questions on the languages spoken? Sure.
Can you hold on one second? We're
sure
going to check the sound. It's reverberating up here, so it's hard to hear. Thank you.
I can stand back if needed.
Mr. Lockhart, are we okay to try again? Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Perrin.
I thought maybe it was my nerves that I was hearing myself echo.
No.
All right, so every year our students that are identified as English learners have to take a state test, which is, the acronym is OALPA. It's Ohio's English Language Proficiency Assessment. And that test is important because it helps measure progress towards English language proficiency, which we are accountable for in helping our students achieve. It is assessed in 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Each domain is administered separately, and students need to receive a score of 4 or 5 in each domain to be considered proficient and exit EL status. Anything below that would give them a different proficiency level. It also signals a student, like I said, students' readiness to exit EL services. It helps our district and our teachers determine plans, or our goals for our students' plans. Each student has an EL, an English learner plan. And it also helps hold our district and our teachers accountable for our plan or our program's effectiveness. As you can see, I've got some numbers right here. We had 1,388 students this year that took the OALPA. 10% of our students that took it all exited, which is great. So we had 132 students total that exited the program. That means they now move into a monitoring phase. So our students that exit are monitored by law. We have to monitor them for 2 years. By Ohio law, by federal law, we have to monitor them for 4 years. Discrepancies, I know. So they still count for us even after they exit, but we have to monitor their academic as well beyond that. Let's see. In terms of the 132 that exited this year, we also have 115 from last year that exited as well. So our numbers are increasing. We had 29% of all tested students that demonstrated a need for more services and intervention. So that's our lower proficient students in the red. Let's see. Of those 409 students, the majority of them are enrolled in the middle school years or in secondary level, so 8, 9, 10, and 11. And they're continuing to show that the trends of our students that are coming in, our immigrant students coming in, are entering in those grades. So what can we do to help support them in those grade levels to help get them to attain proficiency quicker before they have to graduate?
Mrs. Perrin, just a real quick question. I apologize for interrupting.
No problem.
I do think this is a perfect place to talk about the fact that, so when a student, through the hard work of your department and our great teachers and paras and staff and all that, so somebody transitions out of OALPA, because they're just now kind of understanding the English language, they certainly would not have to pass our social studies, our science, and our math tests. Clearly, that would not make any sense, correct?
Correct.
However, they do have to.
They have to. So an English learner that comes into the district that's first identified as an EL does not count for 2 years. They count for sitting for a test, but they don't count in our accountability of passing tests. Once, 360 days in, starting their third year, after the third year is when they start counting. So whether they've been here, 2 years, starting in 7th grade and 9th grade, 10th grade, they start counting in those, sitting for those tests. So that besides sitting the test, passing the test. So it's a lot because the research shows that it takes anywhere for students to become fluent in English, 7 to 10 years. So you've got students entering 7th, 8th grade. They're not going to be here in that time frame to become fluent in English.
Yeah, and I know we're wrapping up. I know you have a couple more slides, but one of my biggest failures, because I've talked about this before, and there's plenty of failures that I've had, but one of my biggest is the fact I really wanted to testify and did have an opportunity to, but I wanted to testify all in Spanish. I would need a little bit of help, but Anna Martinez would have helped me. But testify all in Spanish to a Senate subcommittee. And I would ask them in English, do you have any questions? And when they say, well, yeah, what did you say? And I would say, I'll come back in 2 years. And at that point, you'll be fluent, or at least limited Spanish proficient. And then you'll also be able to understand understand all the aspects of Spanish that you would need to pass a test. Also, the cultural expectations that normal standards would have in Spanish-speaking countries. I would love to be able to do that, and I didn't get that done. So I hope somebody's going to videotape this and send it to each Ohio senator and representative, because this is such a farce. It is absolutely so ridiculous, and when we become more reliant on our taxpayers to pay for us, which in our district is significant, and people look at our test scores, which are so racially biased. It's unbelievable when you think about it, economically, racially, across the board. And this is a perfect example of how that is. Please send that to somebody. I'd welcome a conversation with any senator or representative, half of which I've already had, but go ahead, sorry.
So here's a quick snapshot of the longitudinal data from 2015, which is the year OELPA was mandated in the state. Before that, it was OTELA, but it's changed to meet our ELPA standards. So 2015, the first year, we had 636 students enrolled that took OELPA, and these are total identified EL students. And you look all the way across to now where we are currently at 300, that number's wrong, I should say 1388, not 86, and shows the increase. So we have increased just under 118% in our EL population since 2015, and just since last year, we've increased 9%. So our population's increasing, and it's increasing quickly. And then just some highlights from this past year, which I kind of talk quickly through. Or in our second year, we focused on training up and coaching up our content teachers in grades 6 through 12 to help give them some effective strategies to work with students, because of the increasing population. A lot of the teachers were uncomfortable how to work with our EL learners. So we just finished our second year of that. Next year, we're going to focus on some more embedded coaching to support those with PSYOP trained teachers. We did receive a $200,000 grant this year called the Reaching All Students Literacy Grant, and the focus is to increase literacy in our English learners. So what this past year was all training for the team to understand, kind of dig down to find out what our problem of practice is going to be, and then plan forward for next year of how we're going to implement that problem of practice, which we are finalizing this week, what that's going to look like for next year. So more to come on that next year. We also had our first ever Hispanic Heritage Festival, thanks to Anna Martinez. She did a fantastic job doing that last fall. It is scheduled to roll this fall for September 30th, so hope to see everybody there. And then in terms of parent engagement, we also scaled up the Second Cup of Coffee, and then the Parent Academy, which you heard about this evening. And that is it. So, any questions?
I have a question. Do you ever have situations where, as the student becomes more fluent in the language, in English, maybe there are socioeconomic challenges whereby once they become very fluent, they might be enticed to stop taking the classes because they may need to go to work to help support their family. And I don't mean to get into people's individual situations, but are there programs in place to help a person continue with the language despite other issues?
Ms. Ruffin-Moore, I'll be glad to answer that question. And here's what, we live in an unbelievable country, a country that was founded on freedom for all and for each. And you'll hear me talk about June 19th, or Juneteenth, excuse me, it is June 19th, but Juneteenth here in a little bit. But we're founded on freedom. And so there's certain structures that we have in place that are unbelievable for us to learn and grow and, again, get better. And there are many instances with our beautiful Hispanic population, Latino and Latina population, where they may choose to go to work. And we've actually seen that. We've created all kinds of programs to encourage people to stay in school, to encourage them so that we can help you get the best life you possibly can. Our strongest parent participation, you will see in this beautiful population. You will see it. And a lot of times a beautiful family unit needs help and support. And so when they go, and that's their right to do that, but we certainly engage as much as we possibly can to create specific program to help provide the best possible solution ever. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Perrin.
Thank you. Next is first reading Princeton Policy 5330.05, procurement and use of naloxone, and 0164, notice of meetings. Mr. Burton?
Yes. So this is, as you said, the first reading. With all of our curriculum adoption, goes through committees. It's chaired by Libby Stiles, Tanya West Wright, Ladora Hill, depending upon what the area is. Obviously, this is secondary. When you look specifically at the different subjects, let me just tell you, it's IB Biology, IG Chemistry, and IB Physics. And when you look specifically at that, there's a lot of work that's done across the board. So in your board report, or excuse me, board agenda, you'll see this report done, which talks about the review process, the implementation, the evaluation, and the recommendation. It further goes into some of the Polaris updates that are in there, a sign-off from Becky Heckman, who was leading the charge in that with, again, with Libby Stiles and Tanya West Wright, and looking at that. This is a wonderful program and wonderful resources. Now, again, we have to remember, like, the world is changing. Everybody on this stage used to carry books. Actually, 4 book bags, really. Nobody carried book bags back in the day. Miss Swider, you didn't carry a book bag. You carried 32 pounds of books around.
I did.
I carried about 4 pounds because I didn't carry all the books.
Well, when you're old, you know, way back in time, the books were bigger, heavier. Yeah, I carried a lot of weight in books.
Yes, so...
And the paper weighed more, too.
Yeah, so the reason why I say that is because as we continue on and over the course of years, it'll say textbook adoption, but it could be online resources and whatever. We've done that before here. I just wanted to point your attention to that. We've also talked before about the textbook companies are run by really, really, really smart people. And initially when they came out, and in fact, Tanya and I talked about this probably 2 years ago when we were talking about textbook adoption, maybe even 3 years ago, Tanya, when we were laughing about how when you could buy a textbook for like $90 and the online edition for like $15. And they're like, uh-oh, we got this backwards. No one's buying the textbooks. So then they literally reversed it because they're really, really smart people. They didn't make that mistake too long. And that's what they're doing. So we really appreciate the work of the committee members and, again, the leadership of Libby Stiles and Tanya Westwright to get this through. Thank you.
Any questions?
I do, just real quick. On the notice of meetings, and I see this is all coming out of Neola, I see the date was changed from 2018 to 2023. And I know it says something about it's highlighted in yellow. Of course, it's black and white for me. I'm curious what changed. Is it D? I think I'm seeing something.
You're talking about the policy?
Yeah.
The board meetings. This actually has to do with Records Commission meetings.
Okay.
There had been a massive statewide public records request sent
It has
out.
been. Okay.
And this just clarifies some of the requirements for noticing Records Commission meetings.
Okay, so it's about the records. Okay, yeah. Okay. Then never mind. I'm quite aware of that. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood what was different on this. And then Narcan, did we have a policy on this before, or is this new?
Just a quick point of order.
Okay.
I think we skipped this agenda item, unless I totally missed this. And I apologize, we're going back. We were talking about the curriculum adoption.
Oh.
Unless that was on me, but we missed this. So just as a point of order, we probably need to go back.
It's actually on this agenda after,
Yeah, it's on there.
so we haven't gotten to
Yeah,
it.
so the online agenda is the one that would be the official, so the new one, that's okay.
Oh, okay. I see
So
what you're saying.
that's okay. For the online one, that's something different. That's all right.
Okay, well, so,
I'm not gonna go in the weeds, but I think that whatever's set in front of us is the one we should follow.
So the one that's set in front of you, I don't have that one. But listen, we're going to cover both items. It's no big deal.
okay.
So
Well,
let's
this
just
is what
take a
was
step.
delivered to us,
Let's just take a step back, and we'll go to the one that the board has. So we just need the discussion on, then you're saying the first reading of Princeton Policy 5330. .05 procurement and use, that current one, is that what you're saying?
that's what- yeah.
Okay,
And
so
that's
we'll
our-
do that
And
one.
we included the notice of meetings on that same line
And that's
item.
in the same
Yep,
one.
both of
Notice
those, yep.
B is one I'm referring to. I
Sure.
haven't gone further yet. So,
He's gonna-
And that's what,
he's gonna address, okay,
so that's what Mrs. Petter talked about
yeah.
for the notice. And then did you have a question about the use of Narcan?
Yeah, I was just asking, is that new for us?
It is new.
Okay.
And this, I'm glad you're singling this out. This right here is something that is a sign of the times.
Oh, yeah.
And when you look at it, and knock on wood, heaven forbid that we ever have any issue with a student or staff member here, but the reality is when certain things are happening across this country where people are being exposed either purposefully or accidentally to this, we need to have this in our schools in case there is something that happens with proper training. Now, until proper training happens, we don't want to put that out there, but it used to be very hard to get Narcan. It used to be very expensive to get Narcan. Those two things have been eliminated. I know Mr. McDaniels has done a great job talking about this, helping secure some of this, but also we need to proceed cautiously, and this is the first step to that.
Yeah, I just wanted, yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm quite aware of the drug from being
Thank
married
you.
to a firefighter, and over the years, knowing that it is a drug that, to your point, at one point was cost prohibitive, and we know how well it does in those type of situations. I guess my question was, though, so you're saying this is the first step, we get it approved, then we will have it on site available? Is that what we're saying?
Yes, well,
Okay.
they'll be in the clinics,
Right.
only people that have been trained, and one of the aspects of that is, obviously when you're doing anything like that, you think, is there a liability if something were to happen?
Exactly.
And we have been told and assured, and also through research, that once given that there's no harmful impact of doing that, right or wrong or anything else like that. There's obviously a harmful impact of being in that position, But there will have to be training, so first is a policy, first reading, second reading, and then there needs to be specific training and all that,
So will there be any, I mean, this isn't to say we shouldn't do it at all, but we should just be aware. Is there going to be an impact to insurance? I'm just curious from a financial standpoint.
So
Do
if
you
you're,
know at this
so,
point?
yeah, we don't think so.
You don't know at this point? Okay,
Right.
that's fine. That's fair to say. So, just want to make sure we give everybody all the information. So,
Yes.
Those are good
I think it's a
questions.
smart
Thank
thing
you,
to do.
Mary. Anything else about that?
not for me.
Do we not have, we don't have any other policy regarding administering controlled substance? Is that
No.
what we're saying here?
No, no, we have policies administering medication.
Right.
Yes,
medication, but not
Right,
like this.
but in terms of anything like this, no. So we have to, because our nurses, they would give medicine
right.
under specific doctor's orders. But heaven forbid if anything were to happen like this, right? Obviously, there would be 911 calls, there would be all that, there'd be conversations with medical professionals as they're on the phone. Yeah.
I didn't know whether EpiPens fell under this or not.
We do have a policy regarding EpiPens, but that would be different. That's for a different policy. I don't remember the exact number of it, but that's for allergic reactions, which I could understand your point, right? This is a pretty big reaction, right? But through our legal and working with Neola, this is why this is on there.
Okay.
Anything else? Next is selling property on Houck Road.
Yeah, and I would like to table that if that's okay and talk about that in executive session.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Treasurer's report.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry.
I'm
Where
sorry.
are we? Okay, we
We're
were,
on,
you wanted to pull off which one?
selling property on Houck Road is going to be moved to executive session.
Okay, so the first reading of the Princeton textbook adoption?
We did that earlier.
We did that first.
That was my time. It was
that's
probably
okay.
all me. I make so many mistakes, I can't keep track of them, so I
Okay,
apologize.
because it came second, and I just wanted to ask a question
Please.
concerning it.
Sure.
I know there's a lot of conversation across districts about textbooks. So what is the process for the recommendations and ultimately the adoption of textbooks for Princeton? Can you kind of walk us through what that process is?
Sure. Can I take a step back real quick?
You can.
All right, so a lot of the conversations that I've heard across the district isn't necessarily about textbooks in and of themselves, and certainly not, it would be a physics book or whatever. It'd be more of alternative reading, fiction books. Those would be the ones that we've heard, and recently there's been a lot of conversation out there about people getting phone calls, how many people are coming in, and so they're checking the library. So there's a lot of that conversation. So that's really has been the case. Our textbook adoption process, which has been in place for a long time, is multi-tiered. So it first starts with obviously the evaluation of the current curriculum, the state standards. Do we need to look at different resources? And again, we've been very, very frugal with looking at textbook adoptions for a long time, and now we're in a really good textbook adoption cycle. So we would look, to see if we need it, compare with state standards, look at our own current textbooks. Then after that, then if a decision is made to evaluate even further, then that's where Mrs. Stiles or Ms. Hill, or with the, obviously, collaboration, Ms. West Wright, look at that, and then they would go out and say to the different textbook companies, we'd like you to bring in resources for us to evaluate with a committee, and then look at that, and then bring those recommendations to the Board of Education. And some of the times, if all of the resources are online, then we would make that available. If any board member or any member of the public would like to look at that, that would not be a problem. That's why we have a couple readings. But we'd be glad to bring additional resources to the next board meeting if anybody in the public would like to come or the Board of Education would like to look at those resources.
Thank you. I just wanted you to clarify that because we do get calls and there's always that question, okay, what is a book? What is it doing? And so thank you for providing that. The flip side of that too is when we retire, do we retire books? I've had that question asked as well. And if so, is there a process for retiring textbooks?
So that's interesting. So sure, right, we don't keep those away. There is a process. Just like I said earlier, we hear a lot about what do you do with books that are no longer fiction books, that are no longer seen as classics, perhaps, or what do we do, different things, of retiring, taking them off the shelves, and all that. So there's a process for that as well. But yes, we do that. In fact, one of the best days that Tanya Westwright ever had is when I asked her to go down and take a look downstairs at PAC. We had a room full of old books. And I said, would you please go down there and check? You remember that, Ms. Westwright? You were so excited about that. I remember you saying, thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Burton. So yeah, there is, we go there and then we have to follow proper disposal and so forth.
Perfect. Thank you. Again, I just wanted you to explain it since that was on the agenda.
Sure, thank you, no worries.
Are we finished with that one?
Sorry.
Oh, no, those
Pettit.
are good questions. Next is selling of property on Howe Road.
No, we
Yeah, we're gonna take that into.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Whiter.
Executive session.
Perhaps I was just giddy with anticipation of that one. Treasurer's report.
You each have this report at your table there. Please review it. It's the days you've attended meetings. I need to know by Wednesday morning if there's a change. We'll process your pay for June 20th. This will be included on there. So please review and let me know as soon as possible. Second item, our award for financial reporting from the Association of School Business Officials.
Wow.
Yay.
Great.
We are a frequent flyer here in this district, so
Great.
tens of years it's been received. So that is, of course, a testament to all aspects. It is not just a financial award. It has to do with every aspect of the district, policy, EMIS. Are we following every procedure we might possibly have, grants, everything. So transportation, you name it, if it's in policy or if it's going to be tested by the auditor, it affects the whole district. So thanks to everyone. Another great job. We are still waiting to hear back from the GFOA about that status. They have, since the pandemic, been running a little bit slower. Last year, we actually received our fiscal year 21 award in December of 22. So I expect they can hopefully beat that date. So we'll have it by the time. The audit team always asks if we get those awards. State budget process. Okay, so we're in the third to last leg. The Senate still has it. We are semi-happy, but never completely happy. They have still kept in phasing in years 3 and 4. Yay, that's great. They kept in the fiscal year 22 inputs. The original formula had data like average teacher salary, those kinds of data points dating back to fiscal year 18. Those have all been updated and are using fiscal year 22 data. That certainly helps the forecast. They have not taken that out. We all thought they might. Some disadvantages to what they're doing is they have cut the study of disadvantaged students. Now, they did some great studies already. Kelly Perrin, Rockstar, was on the EL committee that reviewed those costs. We also had one for special ed. For now, the Senate has pulled that cost study out of the report, and you know that's really important to Princeton, that we study those figures so we get the correct amount of funds it takes to educate a student who is economically disadvantaged. We have to hope that that gets put back in. So if you see a legislator, senator running around, please ask for that to be put back in. They've changed one of the calculations in the formula that could impact people pretty greatly, switching from a median calculation. It's going to kill us because some of the outliers are going to really get hurt. I don't know that that directly impacts Princeton, but it would if, for instance, a plant like GE might shut down. So if they take that out, there could be repercussions. It's currently hurting some districts that have some really rich individuals if they don't ease that out. But we'll see how that happens. And of course, what would it be like if I didn't say this? The increase in vouchers is unbelievable. So they're taking our money away. They're making cuts in this so they can expand vouchers like you can't believe. So everybody's going to get one eventually unless it gets stopped, which is fine because, as Tom Burton always says, we believe in.
Oh, we certainly believe in school choice, but not by stealing money that could go to public schools. So I'm going to have a lot to say during my report about this.
So those are, again, if you do run into a senator, certainly right now, that we need to ask them to control that spend or at least stop taking our money to increase that. But as soon as the Senate approves it, it goes to conference committee. That's the fourth step, third step. Then we have to get the governor's signature. And you know our governor has been known to line item veto things, so it's still, all this must be wrapped up by June 30 because that budget takes effect July 1. So we're still in the process, and then I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Ms. Petter. I appreciate that. You know, this is a district-owned device, but sometimes I feel like snapping it. And not ever looking at these projections. So I actually, despite my ranting and raving every once in a while and jumping on soapboxes and, you know, getting in front of a congregation, if you will, and going nuts on the state Senate and House of Representatives, I actually have great relationships with them, and they've learned to tolerate me. I think in some of these moments it's hard to stay composed because what we're talking about is kids. We're not talking about dollars. We're talking about kids. Now, it wasn't long ago where we got less than $1,000 per kid from the state of Ohio. Now, I don't know if there's going to be a levy on the, you know, in the next couple of years or not, because there's a lot of things that could change. But I want you to think about this. So $1,500 a year is given to the state of Ohio to each of our students, essentially, $1,500. If you get a voucher, Chris, how much do you get if you get a voucher? You get $1,500?
No.
No, you don't. So what's that?
72, is it?
Yeah, yeah. So $7,200. Now, I know people say a lot of different things about taxation and what happens and all this stuff, but remember when it came to tangible personal property tax, I don't know when they stopped talking about the tax, that was crazy. Now people are talking about tangible personal property, and they don't even talk about the tax, right, Chris? TPP, that's what they call it. I don't know when they dropped the tax part of it, but here's the problem, is that money is still being collected. A percentage of that goes to the state of Ohio. They call it commercial activity tax. Chris, how much money do we get with commercial activity tax? The shaking of the head would signify zero. So when you think about this, I want, like, our residents, if nothing else, when I leave, I hope to goodness that the residents understand that this Board of Education, Chris Petter, our incredible leadership, our wonderful teachers, our support staff across the board do everything we can to maximize the dollars that we have. We spend very cautiously a lot of times, and sometimes when you don't, we have to do it. So it's very frustrating for me when I look at something like this, like estimated foundation aid out of the House at being $12.3 million. It gets to the Senate, and now it's less than that, and then it continues to get reduced. And yet, the amount of money that goes out of Princeton for the reduction on tangible personal property tax is more than what we get from the state of Ohio.
Right.
So you know the old adage, one step forward, two steps back. Well, what about if you can't even take a step?
That's a shame.
And so when we think about this, when we talk about advocacy, this is exactly what we need to do. And I'll be glad to talk to any community member about this because it's irrefutable what's happening. It's crazy. A couple things that aren't crazy, though. Thank you. So Aero Hub is doing very well. I know we haven't talked about that in a while, but through the great leadership of Mayor Finan and the council and many other people, they've done a really good job. As I was driving through there the other day, it looks like they're grooming, which is good. Don't know what that's exactly for, but I heard some rumors. So that looks to be very good, so appreciate that. Remember we talked about Tri-County Mall, and we've heard there's probably lots of rumors out there about what's going to happen or not going to happen. We saw a fence go up several months ago. We haven't seen anything on there to demolish or do anything else like that. So that's in a holding pattern to see what's going to happen there, but you'll get information about that. We look at, there's lots and lots and lots of new buildings going up in our district. And there's always that concern that we're going to see an influx in enrollment based upon some of the new buildings. So the next work session, I'll prepare with Dr. Jameson, Mr. Fosnell, Ms. West Wright, and many others to be able to look at how many new residents we have from those properties. Now, some of those aren't going to be ready until the middle of the summer, but we believe that many of those have already been spoken for, and then we hope, would then be able to have already enrolled. So we're going to take a look at that to see more about that. I mentioned earlier about Juneteenth. And if you remember last year, we talked about what happened in Galveston in 1865. And I'm not a history teacher, but that is a fact, that this is a holiday in our country. We're excited about that. We know that this is a time to reflect and rejoice. Juneteenth, which is this Monday coming up, it commemorates the day, the last enslavement of people in this country. And we're informed of their freedom. But we know that that wasn't actually true, despite the fact that we are recognizing it. It's the longest, actually, holiday recognizing freedom. But it certainly wasn't widely celebrated if you go back 5 years ago, if you go back 4 years ago. I definitely feel great to live in a country where we could have discourse, we could talk about things, and then justice actually prevails with Juneteenth being a holiday. I hope that the Board of Education and our staff and our students take time during June 19th to reflect, rejoice, and also participate. There's programs across the district celebrating, and there's going to be great activities. So the Board of Education, hopefully you'll partake in any of those. I'll make sure I send a text with all the ones that I know of so that if you would like to go, you'll see me bouncing around at several different ones. There's also beautiful programs downtown Cincinnati as well. But I would encourage the Board of Education, you don't have to travel very far.
There's going to be one in Woodlawn.
There sure is going to be one in Woodlawn. There's going to be some across the district as well, or others across the district. But the one at Woodlawn has been widely publicized. We have one of our beautiful Princeton grads who's going to be there, Kelsey Mitchell, who just scored her 2,000th point, I believe, in WNBA, and the Fever is doing great. So certainly would love to see many people go to Woodlawn as well as the other programs around the district and also the city. It's certainly something that we need to spend more time on and understand more. Mr. Simons.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I should, because I think Lincoln Heights is on Sunday, not Monday.
Yeah, so one of the things I've learned as a superintendent is to be intentionally vague as I was. So I would not slight anybody. So thank you for the Board of Education. So if what's happening in Sharonville or Glendale or Springdale or Evendale, please know that all you have to do is call me at 440-708-4200 or text me and let me know what's going on so we don't miss any program in and around. Also for Hamilton County, feel free to reach out. Thank you, Mr. Simons. Yeah, there's great program across the district. So we're going to do a lot of celebrating. It's going to be wonderful. And then lastly, you know, there's so many people in this district that work very, very hard. And I don't need to tell the people out there, I'm not always the easiest person to, I don't know, not necessarily please, but when I get dogged on something, I stay on it. I stay on it. And we had an opportunity to we were approached by the old Southwest Ohio Investment Board. And when we talked to them about a grant, we were really excited because they were like ready, we were ready, and we thought it was going to be amazing. It was for just under $1 million. And then it was delayed. And poor Tom Cendre, about every other week, no joke, for a year, has been answering my question. Where are we at? What's going on? And there were times when he would say, I just talked to them yesterday. And I said, that is awesome. Call him today. Because of what we kept being told. Well, that board was reformed, the Work Council, and they've done unbelievable work. Actually, the exact name, I don't want to mess this up, was the Work Council of Southwest Ohio. And they were informed by the state of Ohio that along with Princeton and a couple other entities, we're going to get just over $1 million grant for workforce programming and all of that. Tanya Key has done a wonderful job really kind of running with that, but it looks like this is not only going to help Princeton, but it's going to be bigger than that. So we are uber excited. I think I'm only used that twice. We are very, very excited that this grant has come to fruition, and want to praise Tanya Key as well as Tom Cendre for the great work that they've done to secure this grant. Thank you.
Anything else?
I just wanted to say, as it sometimes happens, Great Oaks meeting is this week. So it's this coming Wednesday for anyone who wants to come out. So I don't have a report. I won't have it until the next meeting. But just wanted to say one thing, I know we're past graduations, but I want to recognize the fact that here at Princeton and at Great Oaks, Scarlet Oaks specifically, there was 100% graduation rate, and that is saying a lot. So again, kudos to whatever's happening in this part of the state, because we're doing something different. So again, I just wanted to make sure I said that.
Thank you, Ms. Cleveland. I have to say this. So understand, I'm not trying to, ruin anyone's shine or rain on anybody's parade. So it is a fact that 100% of the students that started the year at Scarlet graduated. And it is a fact that 100% of the students that could graduate from Princeton this year graduated. Did I say that the right way? Okay. Now, but when we look at the results for the high school, because of students falling off in 9th grade, so again, somebody coming in 9th grade for 10 days, leaving, and if they don't go to another school that we know of, that counts against us. So I know we've talked about that publicly. I've talked about it. We just want to make sure that everybody understands so that in 2 years when you get the results report card, people don't say, I thought you said 100%. Right. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
And the Scarlet Oaks graduation was very impressive.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys who were able to make it made it. So thank you.
Thank you for reminding us of that graduation. It was a good event to be at. Behind the preposition at, it was a good event.
Anything else before executive session? Then I move we go into executive session to discuss under sections, and I don't have my glasses on, 121.22 G1 and 4 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
And Mrs. Wyder, I would like to have Mrs. Westwright and Mr. Jameson, Dr. Jameson in executive session for at least part of that. Thank you.